Welcome back to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome to our watch club for Star Wars: The Bad Batch. You want to know why they put me in charge? It's because I'm willing to do what needs to be done. How's it going, troopers? And welcome back to Watch Club. My name is CT0831, but you can call me Hugs. And this is our Watch Club for Star Wars: The Bad Batch, Episode 3, titled Replacements. If you're joining us for the first time, this is Watch Club, our weekly review series, kind of like a book club, but way better. Keep in mind, we will be going into full spoilers for this series and Star Wars in general, so if you haven't watched this week's episode yet, be sure to do so, and then come right back in less than 12 parsecs. Now, before we crash land on a mysterious planet, thus delaying our journey, let me introduce you to our experimental crew of ragtag troopers. First up, he's taller than a Jawa, smaller than a Jabba, and as entertaining as Jar Jar. He's CT1231, also known as Edit.
Hello.
All right, there we go. And rounding out our small battalion, we have the dopest, dankest dude on Dagobah, CT1006, but you can call him Joints.
That's me.
Welcome back, troopers. How are you guys doing this fine evening?
Good. How are you, man?
Good. Yeah, good. Got another episode to go over today. Stoked again to kind of. I think we, Justin, you and I talked a little bit off air. Enjoyed this one a little bit more than previous weeks. But before we kind of get into the episode, let's start off right there. Let's get your high level overview. Justin, we'll start with you.
Given that the last episode was a little bit of a slower one that didn't really seem to add too much other than some character development, this seemed to kind of add some tidbits of key elements or things that will be happening that are going to change the universe or lead to the new empire. So some of the information that unfolded, it was very interesting. I was very intrigued, and I think we're hitting the right sort of notes of what we think is going to happen with this show and where it's heading. Yeah,
I think so too. And I we're going to get to some of the theories that we've called out collectively as a group, or mostly Darcy. But before we keep going, Darcy, what did you think of this episode?
I'd say same lines as Justin there. Again, it was kind of a slow-moving episode overall, but the information we got from that episode was very crucial, it seems, to the storyline going forward. I also liked the very nostalgic feel of, them losing power and landing on this misty planet and then having an animal suck the things. Like, it was very Empire vibes callback from the whole episode. Yeah. So that was a fun little callback. But yeah, I enjoyed it, other than the slowness of it.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with half of what you're saying, because I think this episode can kind of be broken down into two halves, and that it was a little less filler than episode 2. You can certainly tell which was the A plot and which was the B plot, and I think at least while Crosshair is with the Empire, we're going to keep seeing stories on both sides. But I'm glad we're getting into some more, Justin, as you were saying, world-building stuff with this episode. And I love the pace that they keep dropping these sort of moments that are small, but they have huge impacts for especially Star Wars fans. So you love to see it. But yeah, we are going to kind of dive into it. If it's okay with you guys, I'm going to kind of mix things up a bit as far as the plot is concerned. Just because the A plot and the B plot don't really ever cross over at any point in time. So I was thinking we could discuss Crosshair and the Camino and Onderon stuff first, and then we'll check out the adventure that Clone Force 99 goes on. Sound good?
Sounds good to me.
All right, cool. So we're going to start off on Camino. We see that Crosshair's vitals are at optimum levels, and we meet Vice Admiral Rampart, who we learn is leading Project Warmantle. He informs Admiral Tarkin that the new recruits are ready for training under their new General Crosshair. Tarkin demands to see if these new recruits can complete the mission that Clone Force 99 failed. He tasks them with traveling to Onderon to wipe out Saw Gerrera and his battalion. Well on their way, one of the troopers, ES-01, exclaims his disagreement with his positioning under Crosshair. Once they arrive, they discover that Saw Gerrera isn't there, and then they easily take out the rebel forces. With only a few civilians left, Crosshair learns that they have no information on Guerrera and points his gun at them to finish his mission. But then ESO-1 stops him, saying they should bring them in, and that they signed up to be soldiers, not an execution squad. Crosshair says, "You want to know why they put me in charge? It's because I'm willing to do what needs to be done." He then pulls out his blaster and murders ESO-1 in front of the other recruits. He commands them to complete the mission, and they kill the remaining civilians. After returning successfully, Crosshair contemplates his actions as he returns with the other recruits to the barracks. And we also see Lama Su and Nala Se discuss their plans to move to the next phase of their plans to create a quote-unquote superior clone, claiming that their survival hinges on it. Oh, okay. So, guys, what did you think of this plot with Crosshair, the introduction of Vice Admiral Rampart, the transition to non-clone recruits, and the mysterious plan the Kaminoans are plotting? Justin?
Well, I think, I think it was in the first episode, just the introduction of Crosshair in this dark, specialized stormtrooper outfit. Yeah. It seemed like he was going to be an elevated role. And I think I said that I wonder if they're tapping into this, how like clones will become like the trainers of the new soldiers that would replace them, or they would be leaders in some capacity because they would be enhanced and more enhanced on the lines of like Clone Force 99.
Right.
So I think that we're seeing that right now in these moments here, is that they're testing that theory out. It's kind of like, in a way, it's dealing with literally what happens after the clones. Like what is the next logical step for the Empire after the clones,
right?
Because we are out of the Clone War. It's really funny how, if you really break it down. So what is going to happen after the clones? So I think we're seeing in these moments like very much what the future of the Empire is going to look like, and I think we're going to get more. And I like that little element to this narrative, this overall narrative that we're seeing. It's really, how is the Empire transitioning in this but the scene with the Kaminoans is awesome too, because it shows that they have their own plans and that there is something more integral to the Bad Batch than that we might know. Like they're more specialized. Maybe they're not necessarily the rejected clones. There's something special about them. Maybe there always was. So I thought it was interesting. I thought that storyline to me was a huge anchor of really cementing what's going to happen for the future of this galaxy, right?
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. I've got some stuff that I want to say about that as well. But before I do, Darcy, what were your thoughts about kind of that entire Crosshair plotline?
Well, off the top, I thought it was pretty cool. I felt very vindicated when I saw that we did see that chain code admiral guy is.
Yes, you called it. Yeah, you called it. Yeah, so I was like, oh, there he is.
So that was a really neat thing to see, and he clearly has stakes in this. He's looking for Tarkin's admiration. Who knows? There's that storyline going on in the comics right now, which is very similar, where Tarkin has all his proteges, if you will, kind of battle to the death to see who has the right to serve under him. So this might be possibly a lead up to that, struggle we're seeing in the comics, which would be neat.
Oh, interesting.
Other than that, the Crosshair plot, like Justin was saying, clearly the Kaminoans have higher hopes for these the clones than we thought. Like, they weren't just these fun little things that they were just trying out for fun. They saw this as the next step in their greater plan. Who knows if that is the creation of a Force-sensitive clone? Because again, we're possibly going to see some big tie-ins to Mandalorian, and with the Grogu's plotline there, clearly cloning Force-sensitive beings is not an easy task. So if the Kaminoans are onto something at this early stage, maybe Omega plays a much larger role than we first thought. But yeah, I mean, the actual Onderon scenes, it kind of felt like basically what would have happened if the Experiment with the Force 99 had gone through with it. So it kind of just felt like, Crosshair isn't being held back anymore. He is following orders to the most extreme, taking out those civilians at the end there, and his own member. Kind of thought that was the other troopers may have had something to say about that, but I guess they're more afraid of their commander than willing to stand up to him, I guess. So that's interesting to see.
This episode, like this part of the episode, was definitely the focus, I think, and it's what I was talking about in our last episode, like seeing the invention of chain codes, these cool little moments that have big sort of behind the scene impacts on the galaxy, and seeing the recruitment of non-clone troopers. And Darcy, again, you called it, man. Handsome Vice Admiral Rampart being part of the show in a bigger capacity is awesome. And then I don't remember whether it was you or Justin, but also just kind of shouting out the idea that, like, you know, clones will be training non-clones. And
that was me.
Right? Mm-hmm. But then to go back to, like, Darcy's theory of, like, that has to do with their inability to be able to shoot well, right? In case, you know, if the inhibitor chip is actually affecting their shooting capability. And I also think
they're passing on their
100%
shitty skills.
Sure, why not, right?
It.
Because if it's
you don't want to aim for the head. Aim for just like around the head.
You never know. I just think it fits so incredibly well with the character of Crosshair, because that goes against his gifts. It's literally turning him, to the almost the opposite of what he is. And so also, this is, I got some of this from a YouTube video, but did you notice both Rampart and Tarkin are now carrying code cylinders on them in their pockets, which is just cool now that chain codes are a thing. It's just another little tiny continuity thing. And then another continuity thing that I want to shout out as well, Project War Mantle, which Rampart is heading up, was mentioned by Jyn Erso in Rogue One when she's going through all the files. So I just thought it's so cool how they're tying it all together.
Yeah, this is the beginning phases of that, right? Like that's what's really great.
Yeah. It leads me to believe that they will possibly see the other things she's called out, because she listed a couple things before she found the Death Star plans.
Yeah,
there, so.
absolutely. Yeah.
Literally, they're just going to keep going back to that. Okay, guys, we need a name for something. Can we just check the scene? Which one did we use?
Go through the folder and be like, oh, this one we haven't used this one yet, or we've only just touched on this type thing. So yeah, they've got a lot to build off of for sure.
Very cool. Yeah, seeing the attack on Onderon was interesting. We saw that ESO1. Crosshair sort of considers that a flaw, right? His human nature is a flaw, and the fact that he wasn't able to murder civilians. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how the other recruits react, and also, going forward, how that's going to work out. And we discussed last week that we thought Omega would be incredibly important, and how she'd be crucial to the Kaminoans' survival. And clearly, we kind of called that a little bit. They're going to have to find a way to get her back without Tarkin knowing. So I'm really intrigued to see that. Of course, I have some more thoughts on Omega, maybe a little bit later on in our podcast.
So yeah, when they're looking out at that cafeteria table and it's empty, and they're talking about, they're working on the next steps, they're referring to the Bad Batch.
No,
obviously.
They're referring to Omega, because here's the thing. I was going to get to this later.
I think they're the Bad Batch as a whole, though, because she said the clones, multiple, like plural, like all four of the Bad Batch are clones. So it's any one of them is potential.
Sure, exactly. Any one of them is a potential option. They already have Crosshair, though. So if it was one of the Bad Batch that they needed, then they already have Crosshair. I think they need Omega specifically.
Well, I also, again, did a bit of YouTube viewing as well, and one of the ones that hadn't even crossed my mind was the possibility of the gene splicing cloning, to basically how they cloned Galen Merrick in Force Unleashed 2, how it took hundreds of thousands of tries to splice DNA together to get another Force-sensitive clone. So maybe they're using the combination of the Bad Batch, because if you look at the Bad Batch as a whole, they're basically a Jedi broken into separate parts. Jedi all have incredible tech abilities that you see in tech. You got Hunter having his heightened senses. Jedi kind of pick up on that through the use of the Force. Again, their strength is augmented by the Force, but who what's to say that these characteristics, if compiled into one being, would not make a Force sensitive individual? So that's just something that again, the video kind of led me down.
But is that Omega
hole. So Omega might be the final result of that, or an early stage of that, potentially.
Right.
So because, again, she mentions in the B plot, can I learn to track like you? And it's like, well, that's an enhanced skill. So maybe she has that as well. Who knows?
Well, then let's get to those moments then. So we also see this episode start with Clone Force 99 en route to their next location. We see food is scarce, and Wrecker witnesses Omega's selflessness as she offers him her only food. While on their way to their next location, they're pulled out of hyperspace, and they crash land on a mysterious, desolate planet, of course. They quickly discover they need to replace a capacitor to take off. They have one spare on board, but it's quickly stolen by an Ordo moon dragon. Wrecker offers to help in the search, but his head is still hurting from the crash. So Omega and Hunter head out to track down the stolen part. Once they find the moon dragon, it attacks Hunter and knocks his mask off of him, causing him to black out. Omega calls for assistance, but after hearing nothing back, she decides to be brave, grab Hunter's blaster, and go after the beast. She successfully retrieves the capacitor by tricking the beast instead of shooting at it. Once safely back with Hunter, they head back to the ship. The ship is repaired, and they manage to escape off the planet. Wrecker informs Omega that he has a surprise for her. He has her close her eyes and then walks her over to the back of the ship where she sees that he's set up her own room for her. She's elated, and she's never had her own room before. And then Hunter says, well, you're part of this squad now, too. So, guys, I mean, very simple plot. What do we think of this B-plot? Omega's bravery and Wrecker's headache. Darcy, we'll start with you.
Well, again, the headache is kind of suspicious because it is on the side that we've seen the inhibitor chip come out of.
Yes.
So wondering if it's getting jarred into activation or something like that. Hopefully Tech fixes his scanner. Gets that scanner up and running soon so we can, stop anything before it happens.
It'll be too late. Yeah.
Wrecker would be a hard one to stop, too, with his strength. He could definitely do some damage before you put him down.
Right.
But the whole Omega Hunter thing, it was just another bonding moment again. Kind of felt like a family thing where she again sees an idol type figure in Hunter. Like, she looks up to him a lot, and the rest of the crew, of course. And so being able to go out on that mission with him probably it felt really cool because clearly she took it very seriously, deciding to go after the thing. Again, very force sensitive vibes. The way she just kind of sensed out that creature calmly before freaking, like without freaking out too much. So, again, she's clearly not a normal clone. She's at least open to a lot of possibilities. So, it's interesting to see where they're going to take that. And again, the room thing at the end was more sweet. Like that, she's accepted into the gang now. So it feels good. It also raises the question as to like clearly the Clone Force 99 feels bad about the Crosshair's bunk, probably, or he supposedly has a bunk, you'd assume, and they're not letting her use that, maybe because they still don't want to admit that he's gone. Like, clearly they miss him, so they will go back for sure.
Well, yeah, and just jumping off from what you're talking about there, like they do hint. You mentioned it last week, Darcy, in the Cut and Run episode, that it's inherently in Hunter to leave no man behind, and he actually said that. He's like, he still feels bad that he left Crosshair behind. Omega reassures him that we'll get him back. So I think that's really great. And I think this whole B plot, again, it served as some really nice character building moments, and just solidifying her bond with the Bad Batch and how they're embracing her. And, they find it awkward, obviously, because they've never had it to, work or live with a child, obviously. So, they're doing their best to make that, that very endearing moment with Wrecker is great because, it just shows how connected he is to the sort of adolescent, that sort of empathy of kids, which I think if he does turn and his inhibitor chip goes off, Omega's probably going to be the one that's going to be able to reel him back. And
I love that.
Right, because I just think that's just seeing how much of a connection he has with kids. It's an ongoing theme that we see of him interacting with kids and having that sort of bond. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But I think, Darcy, you were mentioning it too. It's like her ability to track and want to track and learn, and how she handled the situation. Like, she didn't immediately jump to freaking out and shooting. She kind of evaluated the situation, which leads me to believe that she's already kind of adopted what you've said. Like, she's probably a gene splice of all of them into one, and she doesn't know it, and they don't know it. But there was already this existing sort of like, there's something about her, like from Hunter, like, I don't know who she is, but there's something about her. Like, he was connected, and I think it's because he knows, like, he feels that there's something of him in her, and vice versa, right? Like there's just something going on. So, for her to like inherently tackle that situation and kind of not necessarily go to an extreme, but like evaluate and think and figure out this thing, it just shows a different side, and maybe it's more of a hunter thing that she has built into her already. So I don't know.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love you're hitting all the nails in the head there, Justin. I love like the moment when Hunter picks up the dirt and then she just does the same thing. Like, it's just so cute. Like, she's totally... Like, I said in the first episode that I thought she was a little annoying. I don't care anymore. She's fully won me over. So, it only took 2 episodes of her being cute to win me over. But I'm a lot like Wrecker in that way. But, I also love that they showed her bravery and yeah, the fact that she took the blaster, but she went the tactical route instead of the violent one. And I think, that's something that Hunter would be really proud of if he had sort of witnessed that. And I think that's something that we're going to also see further in the series. And it also shows, again, the force sensitivity aspect of it. Because, calling back other situations with, force sensitive beings communicating with animals, right? Like, we have that trope, right? Like, we've seen it with Ezra and we've seen it with Rey. So I think that just further cements, definitely we're dealing with a force wielder here. And Wrecker's headache, absolutely. It's going to get much worse. I think something, that'll be a whole episode dedicated to that, I'm sure, and one last thing. I told you guys I was going to cry at some point in this series, and I didn't quite cry just yet. I got really close when Wrecker gave Omega her room, and he gave her his Lula, Justin. His Lula, okay? I got close. Tears came up to the surface, and they didn't fall quite over. But that was such a really lovely moment.
My thoughts with that room reveal was just, is there a bed in there? Or is she expected to sleep upright in a chair? Because I'm not sure if that's an upgrade from a gonk droid or not.
She's small. She can fit in there. I think that's where they were storing the gonk droid.
Well, no, if you look at earlier in the episode, Wrecker's coming down from there. It looked like it was just another like a gunner's cockpit almost.
Sure,
because it's a viewport out to space, of course, in the back.
Well, that would be dope if there's just a curtain like hanging that's covering like a gun or the controls for a gun, and then they have to get her to like and then she jumps in and I don't know. I think that'd be really fun.
Some Luke Skywalker moments just sliding into the chair. Here we go.
Cool. Well, guys, let's go ahead and move into our rating and our predictions. Wrapping up, I want to know what your overall thoughts are for this episode. And we're going to be rating it on a scale of 1 to 5 stolen capacitors. So, Darcy, we're going to start with you.
So like I said, it was pretty slow, but again, those really juicy tidbits were dropped over the course of this slower episode.
Juicy.
So I think it was a bit better than the last one. Again, probably on par in terms of slowness, but a bit more meat to the content that we were getting there. So I'd probably go ahead and give it maybe 3.8 stolen capacitors out of 5. I feel like that's a solid score for it because again, it was slow, but I really enjoyed what we learned throughout the course of that episode.
Very cool. Justin.
Yeah, everything he said is exactly. It was slow, but the information that we learned was very, very crucial to where the future of the galaxy is going. Not even just like the story that we're currently in, but what we're seeing in the galaxy, which I thought was really nice to kind of implement. Right? You're watching a show about just the Bad Batch, and you think it's just going to be about them. Mm-hmm. I think this is an example of how Filoni has learned from his Mandalorian experience to then infuse that into a little bit of this in the animated series about, it doesn't necessarily need to stay so siloed on this group of people, but we can do some rich galaxy galaxy building, if you will, right? So to that point, I would give it a higher score. I think last week I gave it a 3.5, last week's episode. So I think this week I'd give it a 3.6. 3.7. I'll give it a 3.7. Give it a 3.7 out of 5 stolen capacitors. Yeah.
That's it. Cool. For me, as I said at the top of the episode, I enjoyed this episode as well more than the last one. It felt like it was only half filler. You know what I mean? It was part of it was filler, and then the other half was actually, I think, much more interesting. And I thought with Crosshair's storyline taking center stage here and actually advancing the story and the mystery on Kamino, even further. While Omega and Clone Force 99's journey was more character building and overall sort of plot stalling, if you will. It seems that that's going to kind of be the route that they're going to go for, at least again, while Crosshair is with the Empire. They're going to have 2 stories kind of going forward, and I thought this episode did actually a really good job of balancing both of those stories, going back and forth at a good pace. I loved how dark they got with this episode on Crosshair's side. It shows, Justin, you were talking about how the show can kind of be immature at times and sort of very kiddish. And I think this is showing a much more mature moment. Yeah. And like more of that.
I
right?
agree. Yeah, no, 100%. And that's just it. It didn't shift its tone so drastically that it was like, ugh, this is a kid's show.
Yeah. It kind of stayed level the entire time, which was nice. Even with the Omega stuff, it didn't get too kiddish. So yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like overall, I enjoyed this episode and what it does to further expand the galaxy and its history, like we were saying. And any episode that can get me close to tears deserves a good rating for me. So I'm going to give this 4 stolen capacitors out of 5. My highest score so far since the first one. Actually, I think I gave the first one 4.5, but anyways, guys, let's kind of wrap up the episode here. Of course, we always like to end every Watch Club episode where we can speculate on what we think is going to happen, and we might not always have some speculation with this series. So if you guys have something or not, it's up to you. But I just got to know, guys, what's going to happen, batches? So if either one of you batches would like to go first, you totally can.
Well, clearly we're going to get the Wrecker's headache is definitely going to be a bigger storyline, especially with Tech having working on this scanner to find out about the chips.
Yeah,
he might activate it
by accident. Yeah, who knows? Who knows what the scanner is going to do? And I feel like Wrecker either again in the next episode, we'll probably see the headache become something more, and probably along the lines of meeting Rex at some point, because we know Rex has had it taken out, and he said that the other 2 guys he's with also took their chips out. Yeah. So he knows the process. So if they can meet up with him, we can stop worrying about that
theory.
Chip. So
that's a good theory. That's how they probably get it out. That's
that's my opinion. And of course, we're going to see them go back for Crosshair. Like I said earlier, Hunter still feels remorse. Omega's like, yeah, I understand. We got to go get him. It wasn't his fault. So that's definitely going to come out as well, or follow through as well.
Very cool. Justin, you got anything, Batch?
Well, listen, Batch, I got something, and I'm stealing it right from Darcy, and I really like it. Is that I think Omega is basically a melting pot of all of the Bad Batch.
Like yeah.
I honestly think it is, and like maybe it is something that you heard on YouTube, but it makes sense that there is something special about her. There's something that the Bad Batch, or more specifically Hunter, acknowledges about her, and he's not Force sensitive, but he feels a bond to her that is beyond just a friendship. It's something else. Like he suddenly he became very fatherly towards her, or brotherly, whatever you want to call it, but he cares about her greatly. So that I feel like is instinctually blended in based on the fact that they come from the same DNA. So I think that's a really interesting way to pan this out, to show that she's the next iteration of cloning. She will be an example of that, because they took the best parts of the Bad Batch and mixed it and created her. And I think that's a very compelling story in itself right there.
That's it. Absolutely. And to kind of go off of that, Batch, I messaged both you Batches a theory that I couldn't put out of my head, and we saw there was a website, that #show.com, posted something very similar, that Omega's name means more than we think. And I remember calling out in our first episode that, of course, her name means final or last, and I do really think it's going to have a darker meaning for the clones. I think, including the Bad Batch. I think Omega is clearly going to work as like maybe a weapon for the Kaminoans, or they'll use her as a template for the superior clones that'll be used to wipe out the existing clone army. And so I think she's obviously their safety net for the Kaminoans, and I think it's going to be really dark and sad. And I think the biggest thing is she already knows this. I think she actually already knows her purpose, and that's what she's running away from. That's why she wants to be with them so bad and get off of Kamino.
I think, though, that like to the point that we were talking about, I think you're right. Omega does obviously insinuate the end and signify that as the meaning of that word.
Yeah.
But what if she is the end result of this mixture of clones, right? Like she, that's how I'm perceiving it, because, I don't think their intent is to wipe out the clones. So
well, they even said during that episode is that they need to take steps to ensure that the clones remain usable and acquired. Like they said that like that's their first and foremost thing, is to make sure that the clones don't go out of use, basically. So I agree with like the fact, again, like she's Omega as in like she is the end result of the Bad Batch, basically. Like again, they culminated everything into her, and also with the going down the road of how they'd have to control these things. Clearly, she doesn't want anything to do with the Kaminoans anymore, having run away with the Bad Batch and stuff like that. So if she does have a chip in her head, they'll probably get it out along with the rest of the Experimental Force 99 if they do find that. Because
I think it goes deeper than that, though, Darcy. I think the Kaminoans are very, very smart, and I think they would have figured out that to not allow their safety net to have something that especially with the Bad Batch.
I don't know. I don't think that they have Omega turn. That just be like the bonds that they're building are like meant to be a lasting thing. I don't see them taking her character and just being like, okay, now she's going to be the downfall of everything. Just kind of seems like
she could be the downfall in the sense that she shows that they're now obsolete. Like I could see that.
Mm-hmm. Right? Because then the clones being obsolete, the Empire no longer needs them. They need something better. And now who owns those better clones? The Kaminoans. So they say, well, let's get rid of this old stock that we have. We don't need it anymore. We'll destroy it. That way they're not going to be used by anyone. And then we'll have the best force in the galaxy that obviously the Empire will want to buy.
Even if they do have this better stock and that's their plan, they clearly in the past have shown great care for their clone army. I don't see them just quickly throwing away all this work they've put into. If
they've got something better, discontinue the old model. Discontinue the old model. We don't need it anymore.
Yeah, but they won't eliminate them, right? Like it's like technology in the same sort of capacity. Technology is still relevant and useful, even though the user or the consumer no longer needs it or doesn't see it. They want the upgrade, but that's what they're doing. It's very clear that for Kamino to stay relevant, they need to think of the next evolution beyond that, and that is Omega. Omega is the next evolution. It's the next version. But I don't think that in any way does that mean they're going to eliminate. I just think that means that this is, as Darcy's putting it, like this is our new creme de la creme that we're going to be offering up to the Empire and to other people, so that we do stay relevant and we stay in that place of sort of power, if you will, with how they look at it. I don't know if it's as dark and brooding as that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we already have one big bad in the Empire. I don't want to see them turning the Kaminoans into another bad, because right now they're incredibly neutral. So
yeah, I could just see them. I could just see them going and playing with the idea of like, because we saw the clones as a bad force now, right? And we sort of saw that cafeteria fight. I could just see them doing something where, they still recognize that those clones are still just like the Bad Batch and something like that. And obviously Omega won't want to partake in their destruction. But I don't know. I could be completely off here, but that's just my theory, you batch.
Omega is full of compassion. I don't see her wanting to have a hand in the downfall of what is essentially her family.
She won't have a choice. I don't think she'll have a choice.
Again, this whole show is about choice. I don't think they're going to have.
Yeah, and how it can be taken away, Darcy. It can be taken away from little Omega. I'm sorry.
But again, the whole show is building up about how these people are fighting for their free will. To have a main character who is clearly showing what free will can lead to for the Bad Batch as a whole, and just taking that away from her would just be so cruel and devastating. And even if they do take it away from her, I don't see her complying. Again, it's clearly Kaminoan's technology isn't flawless in that the Bad Batch, their chips don't work.
But I see it to your point, Darcy, that like she's an example of what happens when you don't put control into it, and it does have its own decision making. Because I feel like the clones are examples of full control, like with the inhibitor chips and with everything that they're bred to do and the way they're taught. It is about controlling them.
At the end of the day, Justin, you always need a way to hard reset your product. I'm sorry. That's just the truth. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. Obviously, they're going to reveal everything we're talking about in episode 4.
It's a hot take,
I'm
Batch.
sure. But that's my hot take, Batch. I also have another hot take that says most of the Bad Batch are going to die. But anyways, we'll get to that maybe next time. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Watch Club. And if you did, make sure to subscribe to us wherever you like to listen to podcasts if you haven't already. And if you want to write into the show with your thoughts or predictions on the show, the different shows that we cover in Watch Club, well, you don't have to fight off an Ordo Moon Dragon. Instead, you can just email us. Hold on a second. Justin, my inhibitor chip is on the fritz again. Can you just let them know how to reach us?
They can reach us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. I tried to do a wrecker.
For a second, I know. I knew it was a wrecker at the end. For a second, I thought it was a Watto. I thought you were doing a Watto impression.
What it sounded like at the beginning.
Hey, you can reach us. Hey, Annie. Anyways.
Yes.
Keep in mind, we have our standard episodes of the Geekcentric podcast with our latest episode out now, where we talk about the latest trailers for movies like Shang-Chi, A Quiet Place Part 2, and Venom Let There Be Carnage. So go give that a listen. Justin, Darcy, thank you so much for joining me for this Watch Club. And as we say, good soldiers follow orders.